Hello everyone, my name is Whitney Merchant. I am the co-founder of Temple of the Enchantress. We help women feel more fully alive through exploring their sexuality and connecting with their sensuality. And one of our primary tools are the sacred sexual practices from the Taoist tradition. So many of you have probably heard of tantric sex, which is comes from India, and the Taoist sexual practices are very similar. They come from China. And so since a lot of people aren't completely familiar with the philosophy behind the Taoist practices and also how they can benefit everybody, but women in particular, I'm going to give a brief overview today of some of the principles of Taoist sexuality and why they are relevant and exciting for women today. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Taoist and Tantric sex and what these practitioners were actually up to when they created these systems. So Tantric sex has become well known as a training program to have multiple orgasms and to have these extended sex sessions with a partner, which it definitely can do, as can Taoism. However, the ultimate goal for both the Tantric and the Taoist practitioners was oneness with the divine, or cosmic union. And they understood that orgasmic energy has this incredibly high vibration. It's a very powerful energy. And so if they could learn to harness that energy and move it out of the genital area, they could bring it up to the brain and experience kind of cosmic bliss. And the Taoists were also very into bringing it back down into the body for health practices, for health purposes, and they were actually trying to achieve immortality. So there is a larger philosophy with both of these systems that is much deeper than just better sex. Better sex is like a super side effect. And in our approach to Taoist sexuality, whether or not you ever achieve oneness with the divine, I think a core purpose for doing these practices is self-intimacy, to know yourself better, to be more fully expressed in who you are, to be confident in that person, and to just simply enjoy life and feel more alive and feel more connected to life itself. And so that is our goal for all of our students to achieve. And also we definitely want them to be having better sex as well. Now, one of my absolute favorite topics to discuss is how the Taoists understood the differences between male and female sexuality. So the Taoists believe that women's sexuality and sexual power was limitless, whereas male sexuality and sexual power was limited. And in this system, male sexuality is associated with the element of fire. So if you think about striking a match, the flame heats up very quickly. It's very hot immediately, but then it burns out quickly. Whereas women's sexuality is associated with the element of water. So if you think about heating up a pot of water to boil, it takes quite a bit more time for the water to get hot. But even once it's been removed from its heat source, it holds the heat for much longer. So it is considered much more powerful. The other reason why women's sexuality was considered unlimited versus men's is that women can more easily obtain multiple and limitless orgasms, and we don't lose energy during sex. So men primarily lose their Jing energy, their kind of important life force energy, through ejaculation. So unless a man has begun studying Taoism or Tantra, where they are learning to have an orgasm without ejaculation, most men lose vital life force energy every time they have sex. And women do not lose energy at all during sex. Women actually lose their vital life force energy through menstruation. So you can see a little bit of this in our modern culture, because it's a bit of a cultural joke that the man passes out after sex and the woman wants to talk or cuddle or connect somehow. And from the Taoist perspective, that is because the man literally did lose energy in his orgasm, in his sex act, and the woman did not. And so she's not feeling tired. And also, because the goal of this is to not lose energy, a lot of the practices for women will help women either shorten or reduce their menstrual cycles. Some of the ancient Taoists, the women actually aspired to stop menstruation altogether so that they didn't lose any energy, which is not something that I endorse, but absolutely it can be a phenomenal and lucky side effect for women that their menstrual cycles get a little bit easier when they do these practices on a consistent basis. So another way that male and female sexuality is different is that men's sexuality travels downward and women's sexuality travels upward. And this is again something we can kind of see in some of our cultural understandings about sex. Men don't particularly need or desire foreplay, and that's because when their sexual energy is aroused, it travels down. It already goes down to the genitals, so they don't need any extra help. Whereas for women, their sexual energy actually needs to be guided down to the genital area, to the yoni, whatever you want to call it. And so, of course, women like a lot more foreplay that helps their energy naturally travel down. And it's something I encourage women to explore with a partner. Sometimes we assume that men like what we like, and they like to be touched on their chest, or you want to kiss them all over before you get to the genital play, but you might actually ask your male partner, because some men say they don't like it. It runs counter to the natural flow of their energy. So that is something to explore with a partner. One of the big differences in how the Taoists approach sex to how kind of our modern Western world approaches sex is with that understanding that, first of all, the woman's sexuality is considerably more powerful and it is limitless. And so when her sexuality and sexual energy is awakened, she can actually help the man raise his sexual energy and maintain a heightened state without the man completely giving over to it and having an orgasm. So it's very important to the Taoist that the woman's sexual energy is effectively turned on, and that it is that she is I guess having the most authentic and wonderful experience, that is the best benefit to both partners. And so the reason why this differentiates with how we kind of approach sex now is that in terms of timing, we tend to follow the man's timing. So whereas women may worry that they're not going to have an orgasm, most men, their primary worry is that they're going to lose their erection or they're going to come too soon. So they're already aroused and they don't want it to expire. They don't want it to blow out, right? They don't want their flame to flame out. And so they kind of want to get it going. But remember that women's sexuality is like water and it needs to be heated. And if you bypass that, if you follow more of the male timing, then women never fully get hot. And so not only is that going to impact women's ability to have an orgasm, particularly an orgasm during sexual intercourse, but the man doesn't really get the full juice either, because he really needs the woman to get up into that orgasmic state. And again, if her sexuality is limitless, she can maintain an orgasmic state and be having multiple orgasms. And then she, because her energy travels upwards, she can pull that energy up out of the genital area, which kind of takes the heat out for both partners, and then allows sex to continue a little bit longer, ideally. And before beginning any sort of Taoist and Tantric practices, these are kind of the basic principles that everyone needs to understand. But whether or not you embark on a study of Taoism or Tantra, hopefully you got some really helpful tips for increasing and enhancing your sex life. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found some of this information useful. If you did, we will be offering an online class in the next month that delves even deeper into Taoist sexuality, including learning some of these very beneficial practices. Our class also touches on your erogenous zones, your anatomy, so knowing where to find all the right hot spots in your body, understanding the different types of orgasm and the different effects those orgasms have on health and pleasure. And as well, my partner is a pharmacist, and she will be discussing how cannabis can also help women in their journey for more sexual health and sexual pleasure. It is actually remarkable how much cannabis and these Taoist practices overlap in terms of the benefits they offer to women. So if you are interested in that class, there is a link below to our waitlist. So just drop your email and name in. We will add you to the waitlist, and we will let you know when that class goes live. And thank you again for watching. We would really appreciate it if you subscribe. We put out videos at least once a month, hopefully more frequently. If you have any questions about anything I discussed, put it in the comment below, and we will absolutely answer your questions.